African leaders and bankers turned out at an economic summit in Egypt on Saturday, vowing to push for trade and investments on the continent, despite growing security concerns in the region. More than 1,200 delegates, including some heads of state, aim to sign business agreements during the next 2 days at the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to attract private sector investments in Africa. Organizers hope the Africa 2016 conference can build on a 26-nation free trade pact signed last year to create a common market on behalf of the continent. Organizers are also seeking to turn the spotlight on Egypt as its economy remains sluggish after years of political turmoil following the ouster of longtime leader Hosni Mubarak in early 2011.
The forum not only aims to present investment opportunities that Africa offers to the international business community because of its huge market and its huge potential in young manpower, but aims as well to pave the way for active decisions, communication and cooperation between African business community and their world counterparts.
Well, let's get an update now on that conference from CCTV's Yasser Hakim. He's joining us live from Sharm el-Sheikh. Yasser, the conference now in its second day. What is the latest?
Well, Beatrice, it started with meetings between officials from Egypt and from several African countries to try to forge out or map out ways to help improve the African trade and investments. And the Egyptian president also held a closed-door meeting with Kenyan and Ethiopian businessmen who are here. And we're not yet told about the details of this meeting because it's still ongoing right now. But we know that he's discussing facilities that Egypt can provide to the Kenyan and Ethiopian businessmen to increase trade and investments in both countries, whether in Ethiopia, Kenya, or in Egypt by the businessmen in those three countries. There's also MOUs that have been signed between think tanks in Egypt and several African think tanks to try also to bring out reports on how to improve, to increase trade and investments between the African nations.
Well, yes, energy supply is key to unlocking Egypt and, in fact, Africa's development potential. What has emerged from the conference so far in terms of energy?
Yes, it's an important issue. There's a lot of energy crisis in several African countries and in Egypt as well. And there's been a deal that has been signed between an Egyptian company and an Ethiopian company to export energy products out of waste in Egypt to be exported to Ethiopia as a source of energy for cement companies to replace coal. And this new product will be environmentally friendly for the Ethiopian industries. But as well, a lot has been discussed concerning energy and electricity in Africa. And I've been speaking with the Egyptian Minister of Electricity about this.
Definitely, Africa needs energy. There is a lot of, many people are deprived from having an access to electricity and energy in general. So definitely it's one of the major topics here. In Egypt, actually, we could manage to do during the last couple of years major development in the energy sector, cooperation with all the African nations and interconnection between the Arab nations as an electricity transmission lines and this sort of things. It's very important, as you say.
Interaction, like you said, how will this happen with the African nations? It's not easy because of the infrastructure in the continent is not well maintained. How can we work on this, Egypt, with the rest of the neighbors?
Infrastructure, especially in the electricity, is mainly power generation in different places, and then the interconnection between the different nations through transmission lines, working with either high voltage DC or an AC or a hybrid between both. So the major issue is to build the the interconnectivity between the different countries.
Egypt has been embarking on a reform plan to reduce subsidies on energy and electricity. Are you planning to postpone these reforms because of the feedback from the public opinion, which has criticized these subsidy cuts for its effects on the social citizen and economic burden on the Egyptians?
The plan is going by the book. Actually, we were at that time almost last year. Actually, we announced the 5-year plan, and we are following it without any modification whatsoever. There was some slight modification, for instance, when the President Fattah al-Sisi asked to keep the 3 first segments of the electricity tariff for the low consumption to be like a year before. We actually increased slightly the other sectors in order to compensate for that. But we are following the published plan without any modification whatsoever.
Well, let's get a feel of the bilateral issues there at the conference. Yeah, so we do also understand that Egyptian President el-Sisi held talks with his Nigerian counterpart on the sidelines of that summit. Do we know what was discussed there?
Yes, this summit was not only business, but there was also politics that had its agenda as well. And with the Nigerian president in particular, there was mainly 2 major issues that are not really business but political. One of them is to coordinate between Egypt and Nigeria in their efforts to combat terrorism. Egypt and Nigeria are suffering from terrorist groups that are affiliated or pledge allegiance to ISIL and have maintained some terrorist attacks in both countries, and they have decided to work together further more on issues like intelligence information, expertise between both countries, as well as working on sources of funding to these terrorist groups, trying to cut the sources of funding and sources of arms and infiltration of terrorist groups from Libya mainly to those 2 countries. They're also working together on awareness on Islam by sending clerics from Al-Azhar, Egypt's renowned Islamic institution that is known for its moderation. Clerics will be sent to Nigeria to preach on Islam and moderation of Islam to Muslims in Nigeria, to try to create awareness of how dangerous extremist thinking can be on both countries. Egypt will also host the sub-Saharan meetings in Cairo next March. And Nigerian president has spoken with the Egyptian president on details of these meetings that will take place in Egypt.
All right,
back to you, Beatrice.
Yes, Hakim, for us there in Sharm el-Sheikh following the Africa 2016 summit.